Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Dion to talk about Eight Diagram Pole Fighter, a 1984 Lau Kar-leung film starring Gordon Liu, Alexander Fu Sheng, Kara Hui, Lily Li, and Philip Ko. It's significant because this is Alexander Fu Sheng's last roles, or one of his final roles. He died during the filming of this movie, and it kind of is apparent, I think, when you're watching it. And so we'll probably talk about that when we discuss the film. It's based on the similar source material to the 14 Amazons, the generals of the Yang family, and this one is about the Yang men being betrayed by Pahan Mei, and two of the brothers surviving the Battle of Jinshan, sort of one being forced into madness and one being forced into exile, as he is framed for being a traitor and a deserter at the battle. But before we get into that, Dion, I know you went to a convention this week and you wanted to talk about it. So why don't you tell us about your experience?
Last weekend I went to Dragon Fest in Los Angeles. Actually, it was Burbank, California. It was an action convention. There were lots of stars there. Some weren't even action stars, but there was a lot going on. It was a really cool event to go to. I met Eric Roberts was there. I talked to Sean Kanan.
I just know, is Eric Roberts there because of the Best movies?
Yes.
Okay.
And he has some kind of new, I'm not sure if it's an original Netflix series or movie coming up that seems to be action-based. I can't exactly remember. Then I met Sean Kanan from Karate Kid 3.
Yes.
He was really cool. He was really, really cool.
He was the Barnes character.
Yes. I hope you like, I got a picture for Brendan, and I hope he likes the inscription because it's typical of his character.
I couldn't read the inscription in the photo you sent me, which I was glad about because I want to be surprised when I see it. But I was super excited when I saw that. That was a perfect, like, I was really, like, no, if anybody listened to our Karate Kid discussion last year, they'll probably know why. But I was I was pleasantly surprised to see that, because you told me you got me something. I had no idea what it was, and then I saw him signing the picture, and it was super cool. So yeah, I'm very excited about it.
Oh, when I saw that he was there, I was like, oh, I have to do this because of the Karate Kid discussion that we had. So I knew it would be perfect, but I hope you like the inscription because I think it's funny. It's classic.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it. I was like, it's funny because I couldn't read it in the image because it was on Facebook, and then I decided, well, I'm not going to ask because I just want to see it and get it when it arrives. But yeah, I almost got emotional from that one because that's like I don't know why, but maybe just the Karate Kid thing, just that was a really good gift.
I asked him if he was going to make an appearance in the Cobra Kai series, and he said he was hoping to, but he wouldn't say anything else more than that.
I'm really hoping he does. It's funny because there's a fan theory about I forget the main character, like the young man who's like the main Cobra Kai guy. I can't remember his name, but there are a bunch of fan theories about who his father's supposed to be. And my favorite one is that it's the Mike Barnes character. That's the
awesome.
Yeah.
I met Matt Moy from Two Broke Girls. I like that show. I think that show is hysterical. Who else was there? Well, of course, I went to personally go see Lu Feng, my favorite, from Shaw Brothers. He was there signing autographs, and he was part of the ribbon cutting ceremony. And he was also there. It was a 2-day event, so on the second day, some of the stars came back and did seminars. They either did showcasing their style of martial art that they did, or they did talks about one gentleman did a talk on healing and Chinese medicine, which was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And different topics like that. Most of them were martial arts basic classes that you could take to work out. So it was really cool. Michael Jai White was there again, so I got to meet him again. But it was just, there were vendors there too, people selling things. There was a really cool chair that was very relaxing. Someone kept every time someone got in there, they fell asleep. It was like a massage chair, but anti-gravity. It was like, I don't know. It was like the coolest chair. I never got a chance to get in it because every time I went by, people were in it sleep. So it was very relaxing. And they had some healers there, some people that practice Chinese medicine, and let's see what else. Different kinds of vendors. My favorite vendor is someone that I'm actually friends with on Facebook and Twitter. Diane Bombshelter. You also know her.
Yeah, I know her. Yeah, she does good stuff.
Her artwork is beautiful. She did a painting of Lu Feng that was from the Flag of Iron, like, you know, the iconic picture of him sitting in the throne picture, and Lu Feng signed it for the actual painting. He signed for her.
That's cool. That's cool.
And she also did a picture of Sentimental Swordsman that I bought for a friend who loves the Sentimental Swordsman. So she's pretty excited about that.
Okay, that's really cool. That's really cool. It sounds like you had a really good time, and you met a lot of interesting people.
I did have a good time. I met a whole bunch of different people. That on Sunday, after Lu Feng gave his talk / demonstration, he was showing people how to use weapons. Someone had some fake weapons, and then he talked about his experience with Shaw Brothers. I was able to interview him, and so we talked and hung out a little bit. And then that evening at the Wing Chun Temple that one of my friends, Clark, runs, they had a special ceremony for him and welcoming him to the temple, and they honored him and some other guests, and it was really cool. And then after that, we went to dinner. So we got to hang out at a Chinese restaurant with Lu Feng, and he brought his wife Lily and his son Jack, and it was really cool. And it was a whole bunch of us that went. So some of Clark's students were there, and they were really, really cool, and we just had a really good time. It was like an awesome weekend. It was like, I wish it'd never end, but it was really nice to get to spend some personal one-on-one time with your idol. Lu Feng is just really humble and down to earth and sweet. He's hilarious. He's so funny. It's a good time just to be with him. He's not one of these uppity stars that, doesn't know where his bread is buttered. He realizes the fans are really what matters.
Well, and I mean, and I'm pretty sure you pointed this out, but just in case you didn't, for those who don't know, he's one of the Venoms, and I mean, definitely, like the Venoms have like a dedicated following in the the kung fu martial arts movie fandom. So it's but he seems like a really nice guy. Like whenever whenever I saw any of the stuff on Facebook or anything, he just seemed like a really genuinely nice guy. And also I think at some point, I swear, I don't know if you posted it or somebody else did, but I saw some footage of him doing something with helping somebody do some kind of martial arts thing. And was that you, or was that?
It might have been. It was probably either me or Seaton, because both of us were filming his demonstration. Mm-hmm. But he was showing one girl how to do tiger style. I was coaching her on that, and there was another gentleman that he was coaching with double blades. They were wooden double blades, but he was showing them how to do that.
Well, what struck me about the video, and it was only a brief moment, but he looked like a really good teacher. Because I've trained in different martial arts, and I could tell that he was like, not just, I mean, obviously just from the evidence of his skill and talent is apparent on the movies, but not that doesn't always translate into being a good teacher. And he seemed like a particularly good teacher, from what I was seeing there.
Well, I think it comes from, they choreographed a lot of their movies, and so they had to help the other stars to get it right. They were always in charge. Lu Feng, Kuo Choi, and Chang Sheng were always the ones that choreographed their moves, so they had to teach the others what exactly they wanted and how they wanted it to show up on screen. So I think that translates well to teaching anyone, because I think he knows, and he's kind of a people person too. He's really nice, so I think that also helps to translate with him.
Yeah, what would be really interesting, and maybe this has been done before, if it has, somebody should mention it, but a documentary about fight choreographers and fight choreography that really gets into those kind of details. That would be a great, film to watch on a streaming service or something.
That's actually a really, really good idea, to just have a whole bunch of fight choreographers talk about their craft and everything. There's this one short little clip online, a kind of behind the scenes of what goes on at what went on at Shaw Brothers, and there's a clip from Masked Avengers, and Kuo Choi is the one directing the scene and trying to get what he wants, and it's the scene in Masked Avengers where Lu Feng and Shin Su-ho are going against each other after he's already unmasked the three chiefs, and and it's just the two of them. They're part of the choreography together, and it's so amazing. Well, I think it's amazing, but then again, I'm a Venom's girl. It's amazing how Kuo Choi is kind of directing them, and Lu Feng is also getting some pointers in too. But they show the several takes that it takes to get the action just right, and it's really cool, and you get to see kind of an inside glimpse to their personalities. And from that little clip that I've watched years ago, I actually still have, I knew that he was a really nice guy, but I didn't really know how nice he would be meeting him in person.
Yeah, no, it definitely comes through. I can definitely see that he's a decent guy. And again, it sounds like he had a great time there. And we probably should have seen if there was any insight he could have given into this movie in particular. Even though I don't think he was in any way involved in it, but he might have had some knowledge. But back to the 8-diagram pole fighter. What was what? I mean, I guess, and again, just so people know, it's only me and Dion tonight, so it's just going to be the two of us, and hopefully next week it'll be all four of us. But it's interesting. Actually, I think the past 3 episodes just been 2 people each time. So I think
really,
I think I've had. I don't know. I feel like I've done like a lot of episodes like this in a string. So maybe it was just fated to be. But I kind of know the answer. But what's your take on 8-diagram pole fighter? What do you think about it?
I like the movie, but it's not what I thought it was going to be. This is the first time I've ever watched the movie, and people have hyped it up so much.
Okay, I could see how that would happen, yep.
That I thought it was going to be such a grand movie, but I liked it. I mean, I really liked it, but I wouldn't have hyped it up to somebody as much as other people do. Go ahead.
I'm probably guilty of hyping it up for you. I know I hyped it up for one other person who told me something similar. So I don't know if I contributed to the hyping up that you received, but yeah, I think the fans of this movie sometimes do it. We sometimes do it a disservice by overhyping it, and then people see it, and because it's an impactful movie, but a lot of the stuff that's impactful about it is a little bit subtle and not like not as apparent as as some other films that are impactful in other ways. But I'm sorry, go on.
You weren't the one who overhyped it. I guess because online, especially on Facebook, everyone's always posting little snippets from it and, saying, oh, this is the best movie and yada, yada, yada. And then they always like want to put Gordon Liu up against somebody who would beat the other person. And they always use a picture from this movie or Disciples of the 36 Chamber. So it's just, I don't know. To me, it's overhyped. It's a really good movie, but I just don't think it's as good as everyone else says it is, in my opinion.
I guess just no. I mean, that's fair. Everybody has a different reaction. I guess like my defense of the movie would be that I think what's good about it is, number one, the emotional tone that sort of is struck throughout the film, and how that connects with all the fight sequences. Like the fight sequences have just have an emotional quality to them that I don't normally see in a Lau Kar-leung movie. Usually in Lau Kar-leung I get great fight choreography, and we get that here. But there's just an emotional undercurrent to it, and also the violence at the end of it is I find very striking. The way that which we'll get into, I guess, when we talk about it, but something about the teeth smashing at the end of the movie, because you sort of think it's almost like Lau Kar-leung. I mean, it's not like he avoids violence, but he's not the he's not like Chang Che. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't do the Chang Che thing. But this is almost like him shifting into a Chang Che style gear, but in a very Lau Kar-leung manner. And it's interesting to me because there's a thing in the movie, and again, we'll probably talk about this stuff in more detail, but there's a thing in the movie where Gordon Liu he's the fifth brother of the Yang family, and he's come from this horrific battle, and now he wants revenge, and he goes to the temple, and he wants to learn how to become a monk, and they're trying to sort of pacify him, and they teach him a technique where they're training with the poles against wooden dummies of wolves, and the whole aim of the exercise is to take out their teeth and just defang them, but not kill them. And it's meant as sort of a merciful thing. And they're sort of building this whole thing up as being super merciful the whole movie. But then you get to the scene where they're ripping out people's teeth, and it's like, oh my God, that looks horrible. That looks like a really painful, excruciating experience, as well as a humiliating one. And so, and it's the monks that are doing it. And so I don't know. I just find it just has these moments like that kind of make me that just really impress me, and again, I think the fight sequences are just all really good quality, and the overall tone just totally fits with the reality of what happened around the film, which I think definitely is a big contributing factor. But I understand your criticism, because I think it is the kind of movie where I've had that reaction from people before, where I've really promoted it to them, and then they'll watch and they'll be like, I saw it and I didn't really see the big whoop about it. So I think part of it, I think, is maybe this is also the kind of film that it either resonates with you or it doesn't, to a degree, and if people really build up expectations, that can have a counter effect as well. So, but I don't know, what was some of the, what were, like, if you were to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put the number?
7 or 8-ish.
7 or 8. Okay. I mean, that's respectable.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's just not the 10 that I was expecting, I guess.
Okay, okay. No, that's reasonable. What were some things of the movie that you liked, that you thought brought it closer to the 7 and the 8?
Um, well, the fight choreography by the master himself was just, I thought, was awesome. I liked all the movements that they did, and sometimes there were kind of like a little lightheartedness in some of the movements, so that wasn't as dark as it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they're trying to restrain the sixth brother to keep him from kind of like killing everybody after he's come back deranged from the battle. Just like the splits and things that he did, I don't know, not made me chuckle, but didn't make me so serious about it. You know what I mean? The fight scenes were really good. And there was just some imaging in there, like when you were talking about the defanging of the wolves. I kind of paralleled it with trying to make him fifth Yang more calm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
no, I
the
do.
defanging could represent calming him down, because after after the final fight, I think he kind of really was very, very peaceful. He was getting peaceful as he trained with the monks, but I think you could see like an overall calmness fall over him, and he could really be a monk after that. Up to that point, you really didn't know if he could fully make that transformation. And so I felt like his anger had been defanged by the end of the movie. Just subtle things like that people don't tend to make parallels to, but I don't know. I kind of see alternate meanings when I watch movies with some things that maybe other people don't kind of see.
Yeah, no, this is one of my favorite ones. I definitely like it a lot, but I think part of it comes from the fact that I realized that the one of the actors died during the movie and they had to change things, and so I know that there are some imperfections in the film that result from that, and I'm impressed with how well they were still able to structure it, and then sort of turn that final scene into almost a memorial to Alexander Fu Sheng. Like, I feel like all of the anger that's coming to the surface in that last scene is like them venting their grief, and like you see like every character, like and again, it's a revenge movie, so characters are emotional, but I felt like the welling up of the eyes in like the Kara Hui and the Gordon Liu character at the very end,
it was genuine.
That looked a lot more intense than it normally does in these kind of movies, and you can sort of feel it, and it radiates with you. And so and every time I watch it, I try to sort of see when that kicks in the movie. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to say, like, okay, when is that? When is this? When does that happen? And when is it affecting things? But I feel like, I don't know, when I watch this film, I feel like I'm watching something important, and that I need to. You feel like a need to be respectful. So I don't know. I just think it's a powerful movie for that reason. But I guess getting into the film itself, like, it opens up with a battle, again, kind of similar to 14 Amazons, where you have the Yang men that are they're basically being lured into a trap by Pan Mei, who's working with the Khatan to kill them. In the movie, it sort of seems because he's jealous seems to be the motivator, but it depends on who which scene you lend more weight to, and so there, before the battle, Lady Yang does a divination, and the result of the divination is 7 have gone, just 6 return. And so she interprets that to mean that 7 of her sons are going to battle and 6 will return. So then she's wondering which one will die, and what it really is saying is just brother 6 will be returning. And so it's a really interesting, I don't know, I love that device, just to sort of that little twist on the prophecy is really cool. But at the betrayal scene at the Battle of Jinsha, I don't know. What did you think of that scene? Number one, what was your take on that battle where the Yang men are killed?
I thought it was kind of horrific for the director, because he's not really that type of director. At least I don't see him. I don't see him as that kind of director. But this movie he took it over the top. He was more Cheng Che like, which kind of worried me, I guess. I knew that it wasn't going to be like Lady is the Boss, or My Young Auntie, or anything like that, like anything I had seen before. But it startled me.
Okay.
Knowing who the director is and the other movies that I've seen, it's not like him, So it was kind of startling. I was like, is this the right movie that I'm supposed to be watching?
Okay.
But yeah, so I since it was my first time and no one ever really talks about the plot of the movie, they always just say how good it is and how good the fight scenes are. I just never saw that coming. But I thought it was, a good battle scene, enough to drive you. I understand why number 6 goes completely crazy. It was kind of, horrifying. I don't know how else to say it.
The violence kind of reminded me of Executioners from Shaolin, like that level of, it sort of seemed a little more in that zone.
I think it was even worse.
No, I would agree. It definitely is. But I'm sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. I lost my train of thought.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my fault. But yeah, no, I think the opening scene is one of the most impactful parts of the movie. Number one, it's done in this sound stage that's got a very dense atmosphere to it. Now, I should qualify that by saying you can actually see the painting in the background. Like, you can tell it's a wall if you look. There's a number of scenes where that happens in this movie, and so be prepared for that. But when you're invested in what's going on and that falls to the wayside, the soundstage thing just kind of really amplifies it, and it's kind of almost set up to look deliberately like it is on a soundstage, because even in the scene where they're by the tomb, it's like this giant headstone that's like ridiculously big. So it looks like it's intended to appear as like in the same way that like a movie like Moulin Rouge is supposed to remind you of theater experience. I felt like that scene was supposed to remind you of watching something on a stage. And so I kind of liked it because it hit like this surreal note for me. And then when you have the guys sort of standing in the wind dead like that, like the father, and what was it? Was it seventh brother who was killed by the archers?
Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah, no, it was seventh brother he's just riddled with arrows, because he leaps in the way to save his father. And he's and it's just very dramatic, very dramatic.
And the one brother was almost crucified. The way that he stood dying, like picture Christ on the cross crucified, but the way that they did it was so intricate that it involved a lot of people. And then once they just pulled their poles, their spears, and the rope was around him, that's what it looked like, was Christ being crucified.
Yep. And no, I would agree. There's definitely that kind of imagery in there. Now after the battle, the basic storyline is that two of the brothers survive. Another brother gets captured and is taken alive, and I assume he gets killed, but I'm not 100% sure. But the Gordon Liu character, fifth brother, he sort of goes off on his own, and he's sort of, one of them is filled with anger. That's the Gordon Liu character. The other one is filled with madness. That's the Alexander Fu Sheng character. And Gordon Liu, he goes to this homestead where he meets a hunter who he mistakes for a Khitan, and that the hunter helps him escape, and then he makes his way to a temple where he becomes a monk, and he undergoes training there, and he eventually returns at the climax of the film to deliver his vengeance. The Alexander Fu Sheng character, he descends into madness. He goes back home. His mother and his two sisters, I think eighth sister and ninth sister. Eighth sister is played by Kara Hui. They try to nurse him back to health, and it doesn't work. And again, his character was supposed to go on to reunite with the other brother, but because Alexander Fu Sheng dies in real life, the Kara Hui character, eighth sister, ends up taking on that position and going out on his behalf to meet up with fifth brother and get revenge. And so everything converges on this inn where she's captured, and then Gordon Liu's character shows up, and then they have this enormous battle with all the Khitan, and just when it looks like they're about to be killed, the monks from the temple arrive and start taking out the teeth of the bad guys. So I don't know, why don't we talk about each arc independently? Let's deal with the Gordon Liu storyline first. Did you have any thoughts about that one? To me, again, I think you mentioned 36 Chamber, and it does remind me a lot of that. But I was curious what your thoughts on the Gordon Liu storyline were.
I think it's a typical storyline that one filled with anger eventually releases it and becomes calm or serene at the end. But it takes a lot to get there. He's in this temple, and first of all, he barges into the temple and demands to be made a monk. And they tell him that he can't because he's too full of anger. But then he was like, shave my head. And I mean, you have to be in some intense form of rage to actually go and shave your head like he did. But he starts settling down. I mean, obviously it takes a while for him to get the anger and the hatred out, and obviously it's not completely gone because they just mention certain things to him and he goes berserk again. But I liked his storyline. I wish he had shown himself a little sooner, though. I don't know why, but so that his family definitely knew that he was alive a little sooner. But they had to get hints and clues from other people to know that he was actually safe.
And in fact, the one of the senior monks at the temple ends up dying in an ambush because he goes to the mother, and he informs her of that he's alive, and so I guess the other storyline is the Alexander Fu Sheng one, and that one's, I mean, obviously they couldn't take it to completion because he passed away. So I guess the question is how do you feel they handled that one? Did you have any curiosity about how it would have turned out if he had lived, and where they would have, obviously he would have been doing probably what the Kara Hui character was doing.
That one was more heartbreaking because that he died and couldn't finish the movie, and it's not the way that it was supposed to be done. And you do wonder what could have been. I think he would have been excellent in what Kara Hui did. Don't get me wrong. I think she did a really good job holding it together and actually stepping in to take the biggest part of his role at the end. I don't know if anyone else could have done it. I think the casting was perfect. It's just that it's too bad that we couldn't see what could have been. He was such a great actor, and this was another serious role for him, and he didn't do many of the serious roles. And so I think this probably might have won some kind of award or something for him if he had been able to do some kind of completion, because I think he would have come out of the madness to do what Kara Hui had done. But I think it would have taken a lot of work on the part of the mother and the two sisters to get him there. But he would have come out of the madness and taken hold of what he needed to do and did a great job at it. But I think it kind of feels like there's some scenes that are missing in between him going mad and Kara Hui's sister. Kara Hui as the sister coming out and taking over.
Yeah.
But you know,
it's pretty. I mean, for given the situation, it's fairly seamless because I think the way that they patch it, I could be wrong, so I might be misremembering, but I think at one point when it's clear his madness is deep, the mother says something to the effect of, "I have an idea," and I assume either they added that after, or that was going to lead into an idea that was going to help get him out of the madness, and then he was going to go on the thing. But the idea turns out to be sending the daughter, if I recall. And so, I mean, it's pretty good the way they do it, but it's unavoidable. You can't not notice that the Alexander Fu Sheng character just kind of vanishes midway through. Like you just don't. There's no concrete closure. There's one last scene with him, but it doesn't really indicate strongly that that's gonna be the last scene with him. And then Kara Hui picks up, by going out and looking for Fifth Brother. So I guess we should probably talk about the Kara Hui arc and the final battle, because that's pretty significant. She escaped. Basically, they're kind of prisoners in their own compound because Pan Mei brings a bunch of soldiers there and stations them there, and they really can't leave freely. So she has to get smuggled out with the garbage, and then she disguises herself as a man, takes a horse, and tries to connect with her fifth brother. But the bad guys end up following her, and they track her down to this inn. And at the inn, she's sort of cornered, and then they try to smuggle her out of the inn in a coffin, which is sort of similar.
Work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It's similar to the first smuggling scene, but it fails because they see her spear inside the coffin. And so then we get this great scene where she's fighting with this it's actually more of a guandao, I think, but this giant bladed pole arm.
It's golden.
Yeah, and then she ends up getting captured, and then that's when Gordon Liu arrives shortly after, when he learns, because the stable hand brings her talisman to him. He sort of masters his final move in a sparring match with the head abbot, and that's where we sort of get the 8 diagram pole thing, and then he goes to the inn. He's got a cart filled with poles, and he just starts launching them at the Catan and yeah. So I don't know. I guess any thoughts on Kara Hui specifically, and then we can talk about the battle.
I think she did an excellent job taking up the part. It really gave her an opportunity to shine, because I think if Alexander Fu Sheng had lived, there wouldn't have been that much more that she would have done, because it was a story basically about the two brothers taking revenge, and so now the sister has to help out. So I think, unfortunately, it does give her time to shine, and she gets in some really good moves, coming out of the coffin and fighting with the guandao, and just really trying to live up to what Alexander Fu Sheng would have done. I think she did a really good job.
Yeah, I thought that her action scenes were real. I mean, and this is 83, so by this point she's like you can really see her get better and better, and this is when she's really, really good. And I feel like the scene right before she gets into the inn is a really good one, and then the scene in the inn is really good. And even some of the little smaller bits, like the scene where she's fighting with the abbot briefly, as short as it was really cool. I quite like that scene, because her and the ninth sister are both so quick to resort to violence against the abbot. But yeah, I thought that those scenes are really good. And then, I don't know, when everybody just sort of meets, just that final culmination at the end, I think is just an amazing climax to a movie. And there's this, and again we're jumping all around, but there's this this amazing sequence where she's been captured and bound, and he has to sort of protect her during the, like Gordon Liu has to protect her during the fight, and he ends up strapping her to his back and having to fight with her on his back, and then she eventually gets freed, and then they're fighting side by side. But it's just this, there's just so much that occurs during the battle that
yeah, it's really good controlled chaos, and with so much going on. And I kind of wondered about that scene, if that scene would have happened that way with Kara Hui being bound, if it had been Alexander Fu Sheng, because it's a man and a woman. He's bigger than she is. So you wonder if the scenes that came after, especially the fight scenes, were written differently to play to her strengths.
Yeah, I don't know. I suppose it's possible because I mean, I don't know what the weight difference between Gordon Liu and Alexander Fu Sheng is, and I don't know what the. I'm trying to think of a movie where two equally weighted people have been doing similar type of choreography. I would imagine it might be difficult, but it's certainly possible. I think that I think it would have still been likely that he might have been captured, because that seemed to be like a that seemed to be, well, I don't know, because I guess her intention was to go find Fifth Brother, so they could have simply had him found him, and then had a climax elsewhere. But I suspect if the basic pattern was the same, he probably did end up getting captured or cornered and then need to be rescued. It just might have played out differently with the fight choreography. But what I really like too about this scene is I love how the when the monks show up, the thing I like about the monks showing up is it just feels so meaningful, because the whole movie they've been emphasizing that they're like men of peace, and that they don't want to teach this guy violence, and and then the only violence they're willing to engage in is removing the teeth from the wolves, and so when they do show up there, it just has a lot of weight to it. It's sort of like, okay,
yeah, it's we got your back, bro, kind of moment. It's like you really don't expect the monks to show up because, like you said, they're trying to teach peace, and they don't want him to fight because he's so full of anger. But they show up anyway, even though they know the abbot's been killed and everything. But they still show up and help him get rid of his enemy. And I think that was kind of a way to show that he could eventually be one of them.
And the thing about it too is that the moment that they arrive is when one of them strikes Fifth Brother with some kind of bladed weapon in the belly. And it's like it's the moment in a movie, like if you've seen a lot of movies like this, that's the moment, if it's going to be a bad ending, where an unhappy ending, where the main characters die and sacrifice themselves, like that. Like that's where it looked like it was going at that very second, and like it totally looked like it was committing to going in that direction. And there was no reason to think that the monks were going to show up, because he left. They didn't have it. There was no indication that they were coming. He had gone on his own. It looked like he parted ways with the monks, and then they show up, and it's like, I don't know, it's one of the few times where that's happened where I've been genuinely like glad that the cavalry shows up, and it doesn't feel like a cheap sort of rescue. This felt like it felt so dramatic. And it's one of the only movies where I really have had that reaction to the cavalry showing up. I almost always hate it when the cavalry shows up. It usually really turns me off to a fight sequence. But here, there was just a lot of emotional stuff underlaying what was like the arrival spoke volumes of the relationship between Fifth Brother and the monks that just really worked. And like you said, you at the end of the movie, we see him go off on his own, saying he doesn't have a home, and he says he's not going back to the temple. But you do wonder, what his final path is going to be. He kind of takes it looks like he's going to become a wanderer, to just sort of, hopefully uphold justice in the world, but you don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. When he was walking off alone by himself for a split second, I got a David Carradine kind of moment.
Yes.
Linking Kung Fu, the TV show,
Yep.
with this movie, it was like, wow, wait a second, he's walking off all by himself, and then the big opening to Kung Fu, that's all you see is David Carradine as in his monk outfit by himself in the hot sun. It was just, I don't know. It's just a parallel there.
I had the same exact reaction. I think there's something to that. But yeah, I don't know. I just think this is again, I think it is very easy to oversell the movie, but there's something about this film that I just love. And I think for me, what it boils down to is there's just an emotional weight to the fight scenes that really gets me. And I'm sure part of it's the knowledge of what happened, but I think it's the fact that because that happened, that made its way into the fights, and you can sort of and connections were made that might not otherwise have been made, and that final battle where you sort of see Kara Hui and Gordon Liu standing side by side in front of the coffins, and their eyes are welling up. That's an amazing moment, and also just there's a lot of really well structured framing of scenes. Like, just a lot of the scenes just look really good in this movie to me. And again, the fight choreography is, I mean, Lau Kar-leung is very consistent in that respect, but I feel like this hits a slightly different emotional note than some of his other movies. But yeah, I don't know what. So see, it's funny because I didn't realize this was your first time watching it. So I thought that you had seen it before. So what is this a movie that you would want to see again, or is this a movie like you've seen it and you get the point, you don't need to see it again?
No, I want to watch it again. I think that for me anyway, I was definitely colored by knowing what has already taken place. That Fu Sheng was not going to make it, was not going to be all the way through the movie. And I know that it kind of colors the movie in a different light. But I would like to go back again and watch it and just really, really absorb it.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think it plays well on rewatch for sure. Because there's a lot of, I mean, I think this is true of a lot of Lau Kar-leung movies. There's a lot of really little details in the fights that the eye can miss on the first watch. And then when you watch them again, you notice, like, oh my God, there were like 8 moves in those 3 seconds that were amazing. Like that scene in Legendary Weapons of China where Gordon Liu is fighting with like the little weird device on his back, and there's like one moment where like 18 things happen, and it took me like 5 viewings to catch all of them. That is so many little details in his movies, in his films like that. But another thing that I want to do is there's an interview with Kara Hui where she talks about this movie, and she mentions the effect that Alexander Fu Sheng's death had on it. And I think they asked her, I can't remember what the question was. I think it was like, what was your favorite movie to work on and what movie are you most proud of? And I think she said that this was the movie. And the reason she gave was because of, that it was a meaningful film to her for obvious reasons. I'm going to try to track down that interview and link it in the description below, because I think it's really worth checking out. And it was put on the Shaw Brothers site, I think 2 years ago maybe. So hopefully I'll still be able to track it down. But yeah, I don't know. I think I thought this was when I first saw the movie, I think I was mainly confused about the name more than anything else, and I didn't quite have a lot of information to go on. But I didn't make the connection to 8 diagram. I didn't know what the 8 diagram referred to when I first saw the film, and I found that very confusing. And I remember every time I saw the movie title, I was like, "What the hell is an 8 diagram pole? That doesn't make any sense." And so so I went in having almost skewed expectations in the other direction, and then I was just won over by the movie. But yeah, so I don't know, any final thoughts on the film before we head out? We're coming up on the 50-minute mark.
I think it's a good movie, and if you're a fan of Kara Hui, Gordon Liu, Alexander Fu Sheng, it's a definite must see. And definitely, if you are a connoisseur of Lau Kar-leung's movies, then you definitely need to see it. I think it's a good movie. I just think it's a little overhyped.
And I would definitely say, you know, it's something that people should check out. And I would say, try to go in without, if it has been overhyped for you, try to go in without bearing that in mind as much, because I know I ruined it for one person. I still feel guilty about it, where I really oversold it to them, and they came out a bit disappointed. So I would say just go check it out and see what you think about it. But I do think it's a great movie, and I do want to apologize. I think I called Lily Lee at the start of the movie, so I apologize. But yeah, so and again, one of the reasons so this was our Alexander Fu Sheng month, and next month is going to be Kara Hui month. And so this one of the reasons why we picked this movie was, number one, it's the last Alexander Fu Sheng movie, but it's also got a notable Kara Hui performance. So this is technically both the end of Alexander Fu Sheng month and the beginning of Kara Hui month. So next month we'll be doing films starring her, and you know, she's obviously me and Dion are both big fans of hers. And she seems to be winning over Adam and Kenny very quickly. So I think we'll have a lot of good movies to talk about. And also, if people didn't catch it, I have another discussion of Brave Archer 3 with on Wuxia Workshop. So if you didn't get enough discussion of that on Wuxia Weekend, you can check the Wuxia Workshop podcast. And just a shameless plug, I have a book called The House of Paper Shadows out on RPG Now, which people can check out.
Patreon.
And our Patreon page. We link it in the description below every time, but we definitely appreciate any support people can give, and there are different reward levels that you can choose from. Feel free to check it out and support us. And again, we'll be back on next week, and until then, we'll talk to you later.